All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is an Ask Me Anything session meant to be an interactive experience between our team and you as developers or folks who are using Mapbox products. Think of this as a good back and forth mechanism for asking us any questions, telling us any feedback that you have on search experience, data, anything like that. And maybe giving us your point of view on how you're using our tools, ways that things could change, be better. Yeah, so this is not so much a presentation as a feedback session and an opportunity to ask questions, find out how to do things, and get your feedback into product's hands directly or engineering's hands and deliver value back. So we have a chat feature that you can use, or you can submit questions using the Q&A button, and feel free to ask as many questions as you like. We're not going to stop you. We may not get to everything, but we do have an entire hour for this, so feel free to just fill us up with questions. I want to start off with a quick introduction of the team. I'm going to go first because my face is first. I am the product manager for data within the search org. So I handle the boundaries data product as well as our first party mobility data product movement. And I kind of help out on some of the other data sides of things. Murat, you want to go next?
Hey all, this is Murat. I'm a product manager in the Mapbox Search team. I'm related to search products and details API.
Great to have you all here. My name is Sean Graber. I'm the head of search. So I work with all these folks to build our APIs, SDKs, and data products, which hopefully we'll get a good chance to talk about here. And with that, Sam, let me kick it over to you.
I'm Sam. I'm a technical support engineer at Mapbox. I help our customers use all of our SDKs and APIs.
Hey everybody, I'm Mark. I'm a software engineer and engineering manager for the geocoding team. I work with all of our geocoding APIs and our address autofill API, as well as some of the SDKs that we provide along with those.
All right, thanks everybody. Now that we've gone through introductions, let us know what you want to know. Let's see. I have a question for Murat, I think. Saw that you had announced Searchbox API in public preview recently. What's the difference between Searchbox and Geocoder, and how would I use them?
Cool. So both products, Geocoding API and Searchbox API, are the search products. They're basically works the same in terms of API dynamics and have to work. The major difference is Searchbox is an all-in-one product. It has all the data sources that you're willing to search, including addresses, POIs, locations. But geocoding API specifically focuses on address geocoding. So if your use case requires, or your users are trying to find some POIs, point of interest, like restaurants, important areas and airports and things like that, Searchbox is the way to go. If your search experience focuses specifically on address searches, address geocoding API is the way to go. And the good point is you can switch them, like upgrading from geocoding to Searchbox is a kind of relatively simple process since the mechanics of the API is similar. You just need to update for the Naive schema, and voila, you can upgrade your experience as well.
Murat, maybe I'll add a little bit to that, and Mark, you can feel free to dive in and share even more detail. But from the geocoding standpoint, the focus really is on addresses. And what tends to happen is that our customers will have different needs. So many of the folks that use our Searchbox API, they're searching for points of interest, restaurants, et cetera. This is the product that powers the in-dash navigation experience that we have with customers like GM and Toyota. You can imagine it's very interactive, folks are looking for maybe categories like restaurants, gas stations, EV charging stations, or maybe they're looking for a particular restaurant that they want to go visit. And so we do have the ability to charge by request, but it's really a session-based product. And so it's interactive. People are kind of interacting with the search to find what it is that they want. That's also true sometimes in geocoding. We power, let's say, checkout forms and other things that do require that interactivity. Maybe we can talk a little bit about a product that we have called Address Autofill that's specifically designed to make filling out address forms on web really easy to increase conversion on checkout pages and that type of thing. But one of the really main differences with geocoding that we don't see as much with search box usage is really, really high volumes and structured data. So we have many customers that are processing millions or billions of rows of data. Sometimes these are customer addresses. Sometimes these are coordinates that are generated by devices on the edge, maybe in shipping containers, cars, this type of thing. And there are a few features that we've launched recently in geocoding v6, namely structured input and batch geocoding, that enable us to take in pre-structured data in a way that resolves some of the ambiguity of parsing queries, and also take those queries in really large volumes so that we can process millions or hundreds of millions of these queries much faster. And so in addition to kind of the data types, there are also some features that we have in one of the products and not others to better align with the use cases of our customers that are actually making use of these products. So Mark, you're really the expert on this. I don't know if you have anything to add on geocoding v6. I know there are a bunch of other really cool features, but I wanted to highlight that that's another kind of interesting area where the products diverge as well.
Yeah, no, I think you captured a lot of the main points there. With geocoding v6 in particular, we've kind of redesigned the request and response schema in a way that's a little bit more intuitive for folks that are looking to get those address properties out of the responses that we send back. So yeah, to your point, it is tailored to a use case that you are looking for.
We had a question about talking about the upcoming particle system feature in GLJS v3 and what it includes. That might be more for the Maps GLJS team, but I was just going to check with Sam. Do you have any background on this?
I'm not. I don't know the new or all the new features exactly. Although there is a Maps Ask Me Anything session that's going on at the same time as this. So that might be a good session to jump to ask that question. I was actually just looking for a link.
Okay. I'm going to throw this one over to Sean, because I know you've thought a lot about data security and how we interact with a lot of customers that think a lot about how their data will be used, how it's made available to the public. Can you speak a bit to data security, specifically coming from Esri, a lot of licensed data that we feel comfortable putting into a web map, given some of the controls? I'd like to make the transition to Mapbox, but I'm hesitant because I'm unfamiliar with the security controls to limit copying of licensed data from a mapping application. Please put my mind at ease.
This is a great question, and we might need a little bit of a group of folks to answer this one. But we as Mapbox face this problem as well. As you imagine, we have a lot of proprietary data. We also work with a variety of data vendors around the world to buy all sorts of data that we combine, conflate, deduplicate, and use really to power the APIs and SDKs. Whether that's search, whether that's products like Boundaries, or our base maps or our navigation products. And so this is a concern that we are also familiar with, and I think there are several ways that we try to address this ourselves. So we monitor for abuse and usage that looks anomalous. This is something that I think our tools would allow you to do as well. So I think I don't know beyond that. I mean, I think that there's always a bit of a risk when you're putting your data out there.
Sam, do you have some more background on this, or Mark?
I think this one's a little outside of my expertise.
Yeah, I think the struggle with answering this is, there's, I think, a few different ways that we could sort of interpret this question, exactly, what you're doing with the data. So, one way maybe in which we address this, we have bring your own data that we make available to certain customers. And so there are customers that what we do is we'll take their data and we'll create essentially what would amount to a private index. So we can take that data and combine it with the data that we have in a variety of ways. It could be the case that a customer has, let's say, a list of car dealerships or parking lots or charging stations, repair shops, whatever. These are mostly automotive use case, but you can imagine really sort of any category of data. We can replace the data that we have with that data. We can augment it. We can augment it as we deduplicate and conflate. And then we can offer that data back behind a feature flag and effectively only make it available to the particular customer who's given us the data for use in their internal application, their external application. So really, they'll be very much in control of, where that data is seen, how that data is accessed and used, and they can put controls in place on their end. So that's one way in which we've worked with customers who have proprietary data. They want to be served via the Mapbox platform, but they don't want to make it available to other competitors or other Mapbox customers. We also have the ability to make custom tile sets. That would be more so for the display of data. I'm a little bit less familiar with the ways in which security applies to custom tile sets that you can use to visualize data on a map. But that's maybe actually I would recommend that you go and Lucas, that you ask that question over actually in the other AMA if you have time, during the hour, because they'll be able to tell you a little bit better. But perhaps the BYOD use case is mostly what you're getting at, but I think we're not exactly sure, how to interpret the question. So I think maybe that's just a little bit of the ambiguity there that we're showing.
There is also the Atlas product that we have, which is like a totally air-gapped solution for data. It has all of the Mapbox features and functionality. It's just kind of isolated from a network, and you can host it in your own environment. So you don't have any like cross-network calls. So just another addition to that. Thanks.
The last thing that I'll say, Lucas, if you have specific concerns, I know we're sort of trying to answer here in generalities, but we're really, I think what we, really like to pride ourselves on here at Mapbox is our modularity, our flexibility, a real like a lack of constraints that we put around use cases. And you can see this sort of in our product suite overall, the ways in which we allow you to combine products, really like building blocks. The way that we allow folks to bring their own data. In many cases, the very permissive storage rights that we have, for instance, in our permanent geocoding product, we allow our customers to store the results of their queries indefinitely, which is very rare, if not unique, in the geospatial industry. So if this is not kind of hitting exactly what you're getting at, please feel free to follow up with the team. We'd love to understand what your use case is, what the specific concerns are, and then see if we don't have something that's available off the shelf today, like perhaps we can find a way to work together to assuage any concerns that you might have. So hopefully we gave you some like high level guidelines here and ways that we think about this, but for anything more specific, please do get in touch, and we'd be really interested to learn your concerns and see if there's a way that we can work together to address them.
All right, we have one here. In the last search session, you mentioned that the boundaries flat files were going to be available going forward. What does that mean? So first, thanks for coming to the search session. Hopefully you enjoyed it. But second, up until now, we've offered the boundaries data set, which is like our global geopolitical, administrative, postal polygon boundaries representing all those areas around the world, purely through a tile set API. We've just opened up access to all of that same data, same level of detail, as a GeoJSON deliverable, so that you can use that to do geospatial analysis, say like point and polygon analysis, or area calculations, or combinations of polygon areas, that kind of thing. Basically anything that you would do with the GeoJSON. So that's basically what that means, is instead of having to access the data through the API as per what we've done in previous years, now you will be able to also get access to flat files to be able to do whatever you want. Let's see. What kind of search use cases are supported by Searchbox? This one's for you, Murat, I think.
Cool, let's go for it. So Searchbox includes like 3 major use cases. The first one is free text search. You just simply put some open text queries, and you get suggestions, and detailed response about the search results. So this is the major search functionality you can find in any app. The second one is category search. So specifically, you're looking for a specific category around the coordinate, like give me coffee shops around this specific coordinates, or show me hotels nearby at this coordinates. And we call it nearby search. So these are the major use cases that we support through our API. And again, our API has different parameter settings. You can customize how we're going to get the result, or we're going to get filter out the results. But those are the major use cases: free text search, and nearby search, and category searches.
This person wants to know, I've heard about the details API. What is that? I think that was for you, Murat.
Yeah, I can take it as well. So Details API is a new API that we're launching, and basically it will provide contextual information about point of interest. Like if it's a restaurant, it's going to provide you details about photos, visiting hours, phone numbers, any kind of dining information if you like to visit there in a driving scenario. So our goal is to really provide all contextual information about most places visits, and integrate it into our search experience. So let's say you have a search functionality in your app, you will get the result, and then you're going to use the ID from this result to make another lookup to a Details API call and get additional information about this POI, and you can create a holistic experience for customers.
Okay. I'm building a storefront application. Does Mapbox offer address validation services for when customers enter that information into a form fill? That might be for Mark.
Sure. So in terms of address validation, there's a couple of ways to think about that. In terms of validating against certain services, like what the USPS would recognize, that's an opportunity that we're looking into. I would say for validating that an address that you've entered and are selecting from in an autofill kind of capacity, we do have some additional information in our geocoding v6 product, where we will give information about whether an address has been interpolated, meaning it's actually sort of being estimated from between known address points that we have. And that could be an indicator of an address's validity. And then we also have, similarly, the ability to let a customer know which components of an address that they've submitted we've matched against to our data. And using those pieces of information, a customer would be able to interpret whether the address that we've supplied to them has been validated to their original request.
Okay, I actually have a good follow-on to that one. So we kind of described how we think about quality from an address perspective. How do we think about quality for POIs, for point of interest data in Searchbox?
Possibly that for me?
Yeah, I think that one's for you, Murat.
Yeah, so I like to summarize how we think about quality in terms of point of interest and related data. So quality is an ongoing effort. So there are a lot of layers of quality. If I list a couple of things we think about it, like the first one is how we gather data from different sources and how we bind them together, kind of create a unique data set that is very high quality and relies on the ground truth. This is the first one. So our efforts to acquire more data in different geographies is a constant effort. So this is what we do. So secondarily, evaluating our data in different geographies. This is also, we have an ongoing effort to see our performance and specifically compare ourselves against competitors or other user queries and user expectations. Is also an ongoing effort that we focus. And the third one is fixing data with additions and contributions from end users and different data sources. We do a lot of data corrections every day. You have a live pipeline to manage all these updates and corrections during the day, and combining all these efforts with frequent updates from our sources, we constantly keep our data alive and updated through the process. So very high level, this is how we think about POI quality.
Very cool. Thanks, Murat.
The other thing, maybe just I'll mention too, from our standpoint, we also look at what our customers are searching for, so we do a lot of work to understand, what queries are most important, because all data is not created equal. And so we can go back and understand, where there is demand for data. So we service, for instance, several very large automotive customers in various parts of the world. And we see that there are very clear patterns in the types of things that they're searching for, which are probably unsurprising. And so we really double down in areas where we see a lot of demand. And we often work with our customers to understand what kind of data is important to them. And then we either, if we need to build more data, gather more data in a particular place or particular category, we'll either go build that data ourselves, we'll go find that data somewhere, and we'll incorporate it. So this is really a moving target at all times as we enable more customers in more geographies and empower more use cases. The world changes so fast, and particularly with POI data, if you think about just a simple category like restaurants, I've heard statistics like 50% of all restaurants closed in the first year. Obviously, during COVID, we've had tremendous changes in the landscape of retail and all of this. And so it's really a constant work to stay up to date with all of this. And we work very closely with our customers to make sure that we provide a great service for the kinds of use cases that we're serving. So all that to say, it's a really dynamic and interesting and in a lot of ways difficult problem to stay really up to date. But what's exciting is, there's a lot of new strategies that we're bringing to bear on keeping this data recent, working with lots of different companies to find this data, to validate it, and of course, like I said at the beginning, using our own users' feedback on what it is that they're searching for, training machine learning models to rank data and all of this to deliver the best results possible. So there's lots of things that we do kind of under the scenes really to make a great search experience. But at the end of the day, I think what Murat highlighted is exactly right. The data is truly the most important piece of all of this. And of course, we need to surface that data in the right way. But it does start with really, really good underlying data that's complete, accurate, and up to date.
I actually have a good follow-on from that one. I'm attempting to build an application for ride sharing in Colombia. Do you have data available in Latin America? I have not been able to use the geocoding API in the past for anything in Latin America. Is this on the roadmap? So to answer this, yes, we actually do have a lot of Latin American data on the roadmap. We're always looking at where we can expand and add on to our existing data sets. We have really good coverage in North America, Western Europe, Japan, but we are expanding now into Latin America here. I think we just added Colombia and Brazil and Mexico also to our data sets for geocoding. And we're updating a bunch of stuff on the point of interest side so that we can get better data coverage for all of Latin America. And I think we're also adding some stuff in the Gulf Coast countries as the next stage. So yeah, so while I'm not sure whether all of those changes have gone live, you might try it again and look at our geocoding API. If you go to the playground, you can play around in there and see where we have good coverage and where it's covering what you need. See, how often does Mapbox update their location data, and can I suggest fixes? I have seen issues in some areas and would like to submit corrections. Sean, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'm happy to. How often we update data really depends on what kind of data you're talking about. So if you think about our map, which not exactly the focus of this presentation or our road network, we make hundreds of thousands of updates to the map every single day. We rebuild the map every single day based on a number of factors, namely data that we get from cars and other devices that are driving. And so we make updates to the map based on, how these things move around the world. So we can detect situations like road closures, maybe new roads. And so in some sense, the map is alive. It's always being updated. In the case of search, the cadence varies as well. Like I said, we have a lot of our own data. We also work with data vendors. So we update our data, as at the least weekly. And what's really exciting and what we've are bringing to market now with our POI search, we're not quite ready to fully announce it, but now we have the ability to make corrections instantaneously. So I'll talk a little bit in a moment about how we process corrections and can process changes to our map. But the sort of the time to be able to do this, we're reducing drastically. So in the past, it might have taken us as long as a week to make changes to our search data, and now that will happen much more quickly. And I will, take a step back and say that even a week at the time was, I think, really industry leading. We hear a lot of customers complain about other vendors that they work with. They're just not able to get corrections applied. And I think some of us have probably had frustrations with this where, we wanted something to change on the map, whether that's our home address or a business location, and it just doesn't seem like you can get that change to go through. This is something that Mapbox has really leaned into, and I think it's one of our great differentiators that we have tools like Mapbox Contribute, which is an API and also a web interface where anyone can go to mapbox.com/contribute, and you can actually submit a correction. What's really interesting is that the correction is not going to go live automatically. All of the corrections that we have and that we process go through a step that has a human in the loop. So we have obviously profanity filters and other filters to catch really bad things that we don't want to appear on the map. But then with things like address changes to points of interest, we really want to make sure that any corrections coming through are correct. And so we have human analysts that will validate those changes. They'll oftentimes look at a variety of sources to make sure that the change that's submitted was true and is actually a better reflection of ground truth. And then we'll process that through our data pipelines. And that's the piece where, bringing that from the correction step to production APIs and our production database now for POI will be almost instantaneous, and we're going to pull some similar functionality for our addresses as well. So this is a really exciting area of investment for us. And of course, we always want to have the most up-to-date data as we can at all times, but we know there are going to be instances where that won't be the case. So the next best thing is to be able to very quickly realize when there are improvements to be made and process those improvements extremely quickly. And so that's really exciting. We have lots of contributions from folks. We also use a variety of models to detect when our drivers and our users may be, experiencing something challenging, whether that's in the car or somewhere else. We can detect that. We can look into those cases and fix them. But we can always also just have users submit feedback to us. And again, the contribute mechanism is one. We make this available actually in any Mapbox map. There's always a logo. You can click it. It says improve this map, and you can go find Mapbox Contribute. So yeah, maybe that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but just to recap that a little bit, we really do think about Mapbox as a live location platform. So we are always taking data from our products that are out in the world and feeding that back into the system, using ML, using AI to ensure that we are at all times, our maps, our search, all of our data is the most accurate reflection of the world as can be. And it's exciting, I think, that we'll be leaning into that even more in 2024 on the roadmap search. And I know many of the other functions, navigation and maps are doing very similar things. So hopefully that answered the question for you, Chris. And feel free, I know, Chris, you obviously do quite a bit with our data. So if you think I've missed anything, please jump in.
No, I think you basically covered it. Thanks, Sean. Got another question about data, actually. You may not be able to go into depth on this, but how do you reconcile duplicate data between different or even the same data set? Any insights on this would be appreciated. So this is one of my favorite topics because one of my teams that I work with has just gone through a ton of work to revitalize our conflation engine, as we call it. So our conflation engine takes all of our different POI data sources. We have a ton that come in from a variety of different places, and takes all of those POIs and deduplicates them based on location, attribute information, likeness, category likeness, and then we hopefully at the end of this get a beautiful golden data set that is the best of all worlds. So we've just been going through the release stages on that. We've had a conflation engine that has been in place for quite some time, and we've rebuilt it from scratch basically to be even better, even faster, and reduce duplicates globally. So that's coming live here end of the year. The cool thing with this one is it allows us to be selective on an attribute basis also, so that we can say we prefer the names from this source and we prefer the addresses from this source and we like the categories from this one. So we can really stack rank all of our different sources and do quality comparisons between them when we combine them, so that we really do get that best of all possible worlds on the output, and still like almost entirely removing all the duplicates from that data set. All right. I have some data in a different coordinate system from WGS84. Can you do some transformation on the fly, or can I somehow display them without transforming it previously? Sam, Mark, you have insight here?
Usually what we would do is recommend that you transform it using QGIS or org to org. Also, I believe you can do this conversion using the Mapbox tiling service as well. So if you have that data and you want to tile it, then you can convert it and then show it as a vector tile set.
I think on the map side, there's also now support for a number of different display projections. I'm not as familiar with that side of things, but I'm pretty sure they opened that up maybe last year with a whole bunch of new projection systems that you can use. Yeah, thanks for the question. Okay. This person wants to know, I would like to access boundaries data. How do I do that? I don't see a way to access the boundaries tile sets from my application or from Mapbox Studio, and I get a rejected message when I try to do so. So boundaries data is a separate license from the rest of our data sets. We do it on an annual license basis. So if you talk to us, we can enable those tile sets for you. And there's also some new stuff in the works, not just for the flat file side of things, but we have some new APIs that are going to be coming up to access metadata and do forward searching on the boundaries data set. The metadata details API, as Murat mentioned, is already live, so you can start playing with that. If you do have a boundaries license, you can use that to do your lookups instead of having to host metadata in a separate database or lookup service. And then the other side of it is end of the year, we're going to be running out a private preview of a forward search capability, which will let you look up boundaries features based on the name, and then also do like sub queries. Basically, I say, I want to know what all the counties are in Illinois, or I want to know the sub postcodes for the 730 area, that sort of thing. So that's kind of exciting on our side because it makes our releases much easier. We don't have to send out manual releases anymore. And hopefully it makes our customers' lives a lot easier when y'all are trying to use our services and you have to plug a CSV or some other metadata into a database on your own. Well, okay, let's see. Question on movement data. This is a little bit outside of, sort of in our wheelhouse and outside of our wheelhouse at the same time, because we do with, we have movement data is part of our navigation set, but it's also kind of handled by search because we get so much value out of it. But this person wants to know what cuts of data are available for movement. So movement data is our first party mobility data set. For those who don't know, we rolled this out a few years ago. It's based on telemetry that comes back from folks using our Mapbox SDKs. We build this and have an activity index that covers most of the world wherever there's cell phone signal. And you can see changes in relative activity on a 100-meter bin based on either vehicle or in-vehicle or non-vehicle traffic. That's done was a privacy-first solution. So we de-identify all the traces that come in and then aggregate it to that large 100-meter bin so that we can protect the folks who are using it. The question was what the cuts of data are that are available for movement. So what we offer with movement is you can either get a daily aggregation of activity. So you can see, for instance, what was the overall average activity for yesterday or the day before yesterday, and then start looking at over time to say day by day, here's how much things are changing. You can also look at it on a monthly basis. So if I want to know what the average activity is in downtown Seattle from 2 to 4 p.m. on a Wednesday in October, that's one possible output. That's really good for site selection folks or people who are looking at how much infrastructure wear you're getting over on high peak times, off times, that sort of thing. We try not to go too granular on the daily data because, again, we really want to protect that end user on their device. So for daily data, we do just the entire day. But monthly data can be broken down into either weekend, weekday, or day of week, and then say an hourly range or 2 hours or however often makes the most sense for that area. Okay, any other questions? My queue is now empty. If anybody else has any other questions that they want to throw in, we are still here and still happy to answer. How are we obtaining live trace data? So this is a question I'm assuming is related to my comments on our mobility data set. So anybody who's using our Mapbox, like Maps SDK or Navigation SDK to build an application, they can agree to send us back telemetry based on the usage of that application. So we take those traces that come back from the apps that are using our SDKs and then chop them up, de-identify them, and throw them into our traffic data, which looks at live speeds, travel times, ETAs, which we then use to power our navigation engines for routing and whatnot. And then our movement data, which I just spoke about, which looks more about, instead of speeds and travel times, it's looking at how much activity is in this particular area. What's the density of the vehicles that are on this stretch of a road? That sort of thing. Then between those two, you can actually answer some interesting questions like, where should I put a billboard where it's going to get the most eyes on it, and traveling at a speed where people will actually see it, or where should I put my next coffee shop where it's not close to all the other coffee shops but still has a lot of foot traffic. That's a good question to combine Murat's data with mine. So yeah, hopefully that answers your trace data question.
I think we can do one more last call. And, if we do wrap up here in a couple minutes, maybe we can share. I don't know if anyone has handy the links for the other AMAs. We do have one that's going on right now for maps and one for navigation, and actually one, I believe, for careers as well. So if you have questions for those other AMAs, please feel free to jump in, and I'll see if we can find those links. But awesome, there's a couple more questions coming in. So please feel free to keep saying them. Chris, I'll turn it back over to you, and I'll see if I can find the links for the other AMAs just so everyone has them.
Sweet. Thanks, Sean. We do have another question. Do you have more info on your list of POI or point of interest data partners? I imagine it goes beyond OSM. Are there other major players like Foursquare, Yelp, or aggregates of smaller companies that focus on specific regions of the world? So we can't share all of the information on our sources due to contractual limitations, but we do have a number of third-party sources, including Foursquare, which you'll see if you use our APIs. They're kind of listed there as an attribution. So we use both regional sources, global sources. What we try to do is start with a kind of a global base and then infill with regional experts. So we'll work with someone specific to Western Europe or something like that, where we can really infill with quality data that's known on the ground, and then supplement with global data, and then enrich with another source for rich information. So we'll have another source that joins to that in the conflation engine that will add in, say, reviews or photos or other rich metadata, social links, and website links. That's kind of our modus operandi, where any place in the world we're going to try to use that. We'll go wide, deep, and then enrich. And sometimes not in that order. We'll have really rich, wide data or something like that. But yeah, so we can't share entirely what we have in terms of sources. You will see attribution if you use our services for some of the sources that we can share. And I can assure that we use a lot more stuff than just OSM. All right, I'm gonna do a last call. Anybody else have one more question they want to throw at us before we shift you over to the other AMAs? Going once? Going twice? All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming to today's session for Search AMA. Appreciate you joining us. Appreciate the questions. We had lots of folks interacting today, which is always awesome for the team. So thank you again for coming. Please enjoy the rest of Build and find another AMA to start pestering the other folks around Mapbox with questions and feedback and all sorts of stuff. So thank you again, everyone.
Thanks for joining.
Cheers.
Bye.